Awesome. So thanks for joining, and I'm going to spotlight our speakers. We have Ismael here, and Jackie going to join us in a few moments. So thanks for joining our monthly mastermind. Always like to kind of talk about what's hot, what's relevant, what's working, what's not working, and how to change our attitude and dynamic and make things better. Working with buyers or win with buyers, definitely one of the hottest topics today, right? And the reason I picked, Jackie and Ish, it's because they're, Jackie doesn't work only with buyers, right? She's also a listing agent, but she's, very savvy and she has a lot of good stuff to share. Ismael is going to introduce himself in a minute or tell us more about himself in a minute. Very savvy, experienced professional LO loan officer with the House America Financials, and is the in-house for the LA Harbor office in Rancho Palos Verdes. And every time I'm in LA Harbor, which is on weekly basis, and Ismael is on stage and sharing some insights about the industry and the market, it's not your average lender. He really knows his stuff and is really educating the agents in different capacity, and of course, the consumer, right? So a lot of good stuff to talk about, and also feel free, Ish, when we're gonna dive deeper, to share, your experience when you work with agents about, scripts, different dialogues or what have you, and the reason I'm talking so slow and in circles because we got Jackie Hu over here too. Who? Jackie Hu. Hey, Jackie. Hey, Ish.
Hey, Jackie, you're on mute. I want to hear you.
Here, she's gonna.
Thank you. Yay. I'm having laptop trouble. I zoomed earlier on my laptop, so I'm not sure what's happening, but I'm here from my phone and I'm excited for this class.
Hey, we'll take you.
Thank you.
Thanks for making it. So I just made a quick opening and intro about Ish, and I mentioned that you are, with the Who in Blue team, and you're not just doing buyers necessarily, also a listing agent, but you're a great addition that will give us the agent perspective about buyers and, more of the good stuff. I do want to talk also about today's buyers and the difference between today's buyers than 4 to 5 months ago buyers. Those are different buyers, right? So kind of to get our heads wrapped around what the conversation today should look like. And the last side note is, if you're watching us right now, this also recorded. So if you're watching later, fantastic, great. Thank you. If you have a follow-up question, email me or Jackie or Ish. But if you're on the chat right now and you have good question, put in the chat. Or maybe just, not to interrupt the speakers, but you can, in between, ask the question, okay? So, Ish, open up. Tell us a bit about, yourself and dive right into it.
Yeah, so Meny, thanks for inviting me today. I appreciate it. So I am the in-house lender in the LA Harbor office. I've been in the LA Harbor office for about 3 years. I've been in lending for about 6 years, started as a junior processor, then became an assistant, and then I got licensed, and now I'm doing the big old LO thing. I've been all over real estate since I was 19 years old, and not to age myself, but I'm 40 now. So lots of different experience. I've worked on a lot of different aspects of real estate. So I feel like I am like a real life lender. I kind of know what title is going to need, what escrow is going to need, what the mortgage company, property management. So I just give real life advice. And I've seen a lot of different markets, and I would love to share more about today's buyers. Do you want me to dive right into it, or I can introduce Jackie? Oh, Meny, you're on mute.
Sorry, Jackie. Yeah, give us a little bit about your background.
You're on mute, Jackie.
You muted. I'm going to ask you to unmute.
Okay. Whatever. Hey, everybody. Jackie Hu. I'm with the Who in Blue Real Estate Group. I have been an agent for also 6 years, and I primarily worked with buyers my first 3 years in real estate. So I actually feel like this topic is very applicable. I got Rookie of the Year my first year, which was in 2017. And then I started my team in 2021 with Christina Blue. We are part of the KW South Bay office. I am the rainmaker on my team now, but I still work with clients, both buyers and sellers. And then also I'm a real estate investor as well.
That's awesome. Thank you, Jackie. Thanks for the intro. So Ish, just dive in right away. Just
yeah. So, I was having lunch earlier today and speaking. Oh, we lost Jackie. I'm sure she'll be back in a second. I was talking to one of the agents here in the office just 15-20 minutes ago. And one thing that kind of came out is interest rates being in the mid sixes, low to mid sixes, how they are now, even borderline, close to 6 on the government loans. It's not so much the higher interest rates, it's the speed in which they changed. I mean, I've never seen interest rates jump almost 4% in 5 months. I mean, you usually see a 1% interest over a year, maybe a 0.75% over 6 months, but never double. And I think the buyers today really had a challenge comprehending why the market was changing so fast. But they have to realize that we are in a very unusual market to begin with. When 2019 ended, and people were starting to talk about this little thing called the coronavirus, no one anticipated for it to impact our industry when it comes to rates and appreciation the way it did. And I think it's just the speed over the last 6 months is really what's pushed buyers away. It's not so much the 6% interest rate. I think if it was done over 3 to 4 years or over a different kind of time, different kinds of time, it would have been easier to swallow. But now it's the new normal. And we have to explain that 6 months ago was not normal. And I think that's where the market has changed. But that's where the conversation starts, is this is a new normal. And just to close it out, when you try to save money and you're battling inflation and you put that against appreciation and paying down your balance every month, there's much more savings in owning a home than trying to save $100 a month.
I would say from the buyer agent perspective, a decent amount of the buyers we have that have been shopping either seriously or casually for the last year have taken a step back from the market. However, Christina and I say this often, we see buyers who are entering the market now that don't really care about interest rates because they didn't know what they were beforehand. They're just excited to be out there shopping and looking. And most of the time they're entering into a different market that's less competitive, and therefore they have more options and more choices. So we highlight the positives of the market, especially if the buyer just doesn't really care what their interest rate is within reason. The other thing to note, we do typically say, hey, clients, if you're planning to move or sell within the next 1 to 2 years, we have to be very careful and strategic about what we're going to buy. Versus even the market of 6 months ago, or more likely a year ago, you could almost buy anything and make money. And so now we're really having to put our advisor hats on and be very smart and sharp with what's going on in the market.
Yeah, I love that. Also, the fact that you mentioned today's buyers, right? And tell the story of today, not of yesterday, because it's a different market, different circumstances, right?
Yes.
Exactly. And to piggyback on that comment, today's buyers this is their normal, and we talk about, I've seen this all over Facebook, and I stole it from someone, I'm sure of it. It's marrying the house and dating the rate. You could take advantage of a different market as it changes, but for now, this is where we are. And that's one thing that I've never sold interest rates. Interest rates sell themselves. It's education, affordability, and explaining the long-term solution, and understanding that for the next 6 months to 18 months after you close, the market's going to be shifting. Just make your payments. You're already approved and your appraisal was done. That's what it was worth the day we closed. Just keep making your payments, and the market will correct itself either up or down. And you'll see your opportunity. It was a great opportunity for you to buy in that market.
Yeah, I this morning I was invited to David Yashar, is one of our commercial agents, function in Beverly Hills, and he had various speakers and what have you talking about the aspects of the economy and real estate, and one of his guests was one of the VPs of Chase Bank, and it was interesting to hear their perspective as a big bank. But the bottom line was the same thing as we hear all over the place, right? It's there's maybe some cloudy days ahead, right? Because nobody want to say the word recession, right? We're definitely in inflation type of a market, but the rates, right? The basis point went up yesterday ish. What is that? Like, 3/4?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
3/4. And they say like, yeah, we might see even a higher rates, the 30 years or whatever, higher than 6% into next year. At the end of the day, though, when for example, he shared when he started the business, rates were 14%. So when someone got a 9% interest rate, goes like the hottest deal in town, right?
And most buyers back then had to pay points to get those rates, because there wasn't this bank compensation that a lot of loan officers get now. Everything was on a point system, and that's how it was just done back then. But yeah, starting when I got on the market, rates were between 7 and 8, and I saw them go down and up and down and up. And you can't try to predict the market. All you can do is accept what your reality is and leverage your situation.
Another thing I want to add is that I genuinely believe if you're going to hold on to your property for at least 5 years, it is a great market to buy, because all of the confusion and chaos has caused sellers and agents to be very unsure. And so some of the Who and Blue's most recent transactions, most of our buy sides have been way under list. We even had one come in $120,000 under list. The seller gave credit and the buyer was able to buy down their rate. Sorry, 120 under the appraised value. And then I would also be looking at houses that have been on the market a little bit longer, and how can you create, if your buyer's interested, how can you create a win-win between you and the seller and the buyer for that property? And a lot of times it's assuring the listing agent and the seller that your buyer can close because you have them pre-approved or fully underwritten with great lenders, but then you can take the seller takes more concessions from the sellers in other ways because you're going to guarantee the close. And if the seller is selling right now, they have to sell.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Jackie mentioned this a few minutes ago, with less competition, you're seeing a lot of different ways to leverage the market. I mean, and us lenders are adapting. The big program right now that I'm seeing a lot over social media is the 2-1 buy down program, where the seller can pay a subsidy. It's not a point, it's a subsidy. So the buyer can get 2% off the market rate for the first year of the loan, 1% off the second year of the loan, and then continue to pay the market rate from year 3 to 30. But you are able to lower that rate payment by 2%. And that's a big deal especially when you're competing with other buyers, if you have a seller who's willing to contribute in that 2-1 buy down program.
So thank you both. That was great insight for sure. I want to take 2 steps backwards, because I also don't want to bore ourselves to death, because it seems like the rates, which was like a kind of cool topic to talk about, is becoming like the daily, let's shoot the rates. Like, okay, we'll go back to that in 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go back a few steps. And here's the question I want to ask for. So it might be, first of all, a more of a Jackie question, and then Ish, for sure, because you out there in the field a lot and talking to a lot of people. Basics 101 of win with buyers, right? And of course, apply to today's market, not yesterday's and whatever. How do we win with buyers, in a sense of like, what is the right approach? What are the right questions? How do you, take a buyer from point A to point B, which means to get into escrow faster than the average?
One of the things that the Who and Blue team really cares about is finding the buyer's motivation, and then also leading the client, not assisting the client. I think assisting the client is something that a lot of newer agents fall into, or if you don't have a ton of experience, a lot of times you can assist the client, which means the client is being the proactive one and you're just reacting to everything the client does. That means either they're sending you properties or they're saying, hey, I talked to this lender.
versus you being the leader is taking them down the sales funnel because you're the one with experience and you're the one who knows what you're doing. So what that would look like for the Who and Blue team, we have a very serious process. We don't work with buyers unless they sign buyer rep agreements because we're very passionate about our time. And so part of having the buyer sign the buyer rep agreement is taking them through our process. So, you know, that means somebody reaches out and says, hey, I'm interested in selling, or hey, I'm interested in buying. I normally say, hey, is it something you're thinking about immediately or something you're thinking about in a year or two? If it's a year or two, we'll do a 30-minute phone call. I'll kind of get them prepared. And then I will try to get them in front of a lender so they can have real conversations about what they need to do to get ready for the market. If they're ready to buy sooner, then we schedule either an in-person or a Zoom buyer consultation. And we have a whole process of what that buyer consultation looks like. And almost the most important part of that buyer consultation is having the buyer find their motivation. Christina, on the other team leader on our team, does a really great job of making us find the buyer's motivation. Because a lot of times buyers will just come to you and say, I want a 3-bedroom, I want this, I want that, but why? Like if I found you a 2-bedroom with a loft, would that be okay? While we're in a less competitive market, there's still not a lot of inventory. So a lot of times buyers are going to have to give up 1 or 2 really nice to haves. And so finding their motivation is part of that too. And that's going to help you lead the client. And then just the last thing that I wanted to highlight in finding their motivation as the market's tough or as maybe rates jump again, it's pointing them back to that motivation. I know that your payment probably just went up $100, but that's better than you renewing your lease for another year and your rent going up $300 every single month.
Nailed it. Yeah, absolutely. Can you explain a little bit about, give some examples about motivation? If like, you know, some people on the call newer, or maybe didn't really have, or just don't, you know, have difficulty to identify the motives.
Yeah, finding your motivation. A lot of times, the big ones are like getting married, or your lease coming up, or you're moving to a new area. Some smaller ones might be like Ish mentioned earlier. You've decided I want to start investing in real estate. And so the best way for me to do that for most people is your first home. And so it's taking that step. Some other motivations might, I don't know if I said a baby, but having a family or having family move in with you, those sort of things.
Yeah, thank you.
And it's funny you say motivation, because the number one thing I talk about with clients is lifestyle. Because so many people buyers who I talk to, they just want to get in. They're desperate. They heard that's a great time to buy. They want it. They want to go as high as they can. And if the client wants to do that, that's fine. But it's important to break down the numbers, because my max number that I pre-approve them for is going to be totally different than what they're thinking. I don't want to take away their lifestyle. Now, I'm a big Disney fan, love Disney, mouse ears. Mm-hmm. If they're Disney people like me, I don't want to take away their passes. If they like going on mini vacations, go on your mini vacations. Or if they're homebodies, but they love DIY projects, let them do it. They need to have that freedom. So I like to explain to people to keep your lifestyle within your mortgage. Don't let the mortgage drive your lifestyle. And when I hear motivation, I immediately go to lifestyle. Because if they are going to start that family, are they considering childcare? Are they considering diapers? I mean, I'm sorry, I have 2 kids. They're not cheap, you know. But it's making sure that if me and Jackie originate this for this client, they're not going to be mad at Jackie for making them overpay. They're not going to get mad at me because their mortgage payment's too high. I want them to be as happy as they were when they signed that buyer broker agreement to when they sign their loan documents, hopefully 45 days later. So I love selling lifestyle, because that's one thing that I do not want to take away from anyone. And that goes right into the motivation.
And just to piggyback off that, and give you guys some hard numbers, a lot of people say that your mortgage or your housing budget should be 1/4 of what your overall income is. And to be honest, that's very hard in California. So I would say for a lot of people, it's closer to 1/3 of your budget. And I think what Ish is saying is very important because yeah, we want to sell homes, but we don't want to get somebody somewhere that they shouldn't be. And so I do think talking about lifestyle changes is important. The other thing that we like to warn our buyers about is, and this is from my experience as I've bought in multiple homes, primary residences, and then also investment properties. But usually the first year, a year and a half is a little bit, you're kind of more stressed about money because you just made this big purchase. Usually your mortgage is more than rent, and you're kind of having to pay catch up with all the other costs that are associated, like moving and getting new furniture. So I try to warn buyers that the first year and a half to 2 years, it might feel tight, but after that, it's going to get better.
Yeah.
And especially exactly like when you kind of build that momentum, and also, again, if the rate will change, right? He said earlier, marry the house, date the rate, you can change the rate, right? You can lower the rate, like what many homeowners or investors did between 2020 and mostly 2021. That was like, unheard of, almost free money.
Yeah, really.
My husband is very proud of the fact that all our mortgages are under 3%, which is just mind blowing. Like that's just not, we're not there anymore. And so that's like his favorite topic to pull out at dinner parties.
Yeah. And you know what? It's having those kind of rates, and it's not just the rate, it's when you make a payment, you're paying so much more on principal. I mean, you don't feel like you're throwing your money away. And it's one of the greatest feelings because every month you're paying down the principal, but the ratio of principal to interest is so much better when you have a lower rate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So next time in the party with Jackie, the guy next to the bar talking about rates, that's
Yep.
Ish, you go to a lot of open houses, brokers open, etc., visiting agents and having conversation. What do you see kind of working? And this is not a conversation about open houses necessarily, but we know that whoever's showing up to open houses, 95% are the buyers, right? The others just looky-loos or curious neighbors. What's the best kind of conversation of today or conversion to kind of help out?
I feel a lot of buyers, and talking to different buyers open house, they realize that this shift is happening. And they're not so much focused on price, but now they're focused on not what they can get, but what kind, and I want to say what kind of deal. It's the motivation has changed. Now they know they can get a better price. So they're a little bit more particular in their needs. But on that same note, the buyers that are out there, serious buyers, are shopping hard. They're hitting those open houses because they know, yeah, rates might be a little bit higher, but competition's down. And now is a time where they can get something really, really good, a really, really good deal, because they know that sellers are kind of in an awkward position. Sellers are selling for a reason. They have to sell for something. So now you're seeing these buyers who know they can get a little bit more on the interest rate when it comes to credit for closing costs. You're hearing more, well, if we get rid of this part of our motivation, maybe we can get this because we're getting a better deal with the price. And even though rates may be higher, prices are more competitive, and they know they can leverage the market later. And I think the education that's out there with TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, and all the other social media platforms, they know buyers are smarter than ever. And they feel like they know more than us sometimes. But at the end of the day, you want to lead them and not assist them, like Jackie said.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thank you. What do you find, Jackie, when it comes to working with buyers in general? Doesn't have to be today's buyers, from your experience, right, throughout the years. The best conversion when it comes to manage expectations, right? So you did your needs analysis. We got it. It's like exactly the motivation and what they need, what they want. But managing expectations, because what I've heard a lot, more than ever, that was last year, because we know what happened to the market. The prices spiked, and the competition became like very kind of ruthless competition. Every listing had, you know, if it was the right property, would, you know, still a decent listing price. You had at least 5 offers up to maybe even 50 offers or more. So sometimes you had to lose a few before they listen to you, right? So how do you go about that?
I think it all comes back to the buyer consult, and as much knowledge and value and expectation setting you can do during that buyer consultation is great. There are times that you're just going to have to let your clients miss out. Like that, you're writing the offer and you're like, this is not going to get accepted. I've talked to the listing agent. They have 5 other offers and we're coming in 10,000 above list. It's just not going to happen. Again, that was like 6 months ago. Now we're still seeing multiple offers. So it's not that, but it is setting the expectation with the client. Some of the phrases or scripts that we often use is, if you're trying to be in your new house in January, we should really start looking in September and November, or September, October, November, because we'll usually miss out on 2 to 3 offers in this market. We also set expectations for how often the client can talk to us and what working with us looks like. This is what you should expect from us. And then what other things do you what other expectations do you have for us? And we can kind of talk through, because sometimes they'll say things that aren't fully realistic. Like, I would like you to preview every property before I go see it. That's not realistic. So we need to address those things up front. The other expectations that we utilize showing agents a decent amount. And so we set the expectation of working with our team is great, because you'll never have to worry about relying only on my schedule. I have a great team of showing agents that have been trained by me, and they're going to be the ones who are going to be able to get you into the property whenever it's convenient for you. And you don't have to wait for my schedule while I'm out doing other things. Another expectation we talk about a lot is appraisal value. And I probably don't have time to really go into our whole explanation about appraisals, but we have a whole process to try to guarantee that a property will appraise. The other kind of expectation we set sometimes is that at closing, we let the client know, like, we've talked almost every single day throughout this transaction, and it's now that we're closing, it's not that I don't love you. You probably just won't be calling me every single day. You can still, I would love to check in with you, come see the house once you've moved in, but it's helping manage the lean out of the buyer once the transaction's over. I don't know if that exactly answered your question, Meny, but there's other ways we manage expectations, but I'll just stick with those for now.
That's awesome. It's all golden nuggets. Ish, same question, but you are the fierce loan officer and I'm an agent, and I throwing my buyers at you, and then you're looking at what's going on like, oh my God, this is just not good. Or even worse, like that happened multiple times, because I keep hearing stories, 3 weeks, 4 weeks into escrow, then crazy stuff happening, right? So how can, give us advice, right, to us realtors, how can we pre-qualify by, questions or whatever, maybe how to utilize someone like you to get the buyers ready in a different level to begin with?
So all the agents here in the LA Harbor office know, and I say this all the time, you guys are the doctors, I'm the dentist. You're going to take care of their whole body. I'm going to make sure that a nice, pretty smile. I want it, because that's the only thing a seller will see. All they'll see is what's on paper. So for me, when you have a buyer who you shoot over to me, the most important thing is don't be lazy. And I don't mean that a personal attack on any other loan officer or myself, but if it's a no, say it's a no. Don't let these clients linger on with this false sense of hope. And it's not that we don't love them. It's not that we don't care for them. It's not we don't want to work with them. They're just not ready. And it's so important to be able to put a smile on your face when it's not going to go their way. Because you don't want to just say no and kick them and say next. We're not the DMV, for lack of a better term. We want to make sure that they're warm and fuzzy. And you do that by educating them. And you do that by explaining the scenario to them. Look, the payment on this house is $4,500. You make $6,000 a month. Let's talk about this. Are you really going to be able to pay your taxes, pay your utilities, buy groceries, take care of your family on $1,500 a month? It's the reality. but always do it with a smile, because you don't want to be a condescending, you know what, because people will take it that way. But so you want to be able to take the good and the bad and treat it equal. And I know that's so hard to do, because all you want to do is please your clients. But if they're not ready, then they're not. But if they are ready and they are motivated, keep their expectations real. Yes, everybody wants to close an escrow in 2 weeks. But let's say you have a 14, 17-day escrow and you want to close fast, but the buyer is not technology savvy. You have to set the right expectations, because the only person that's going to get frustrated, and the most important person, is the seller. They don't close on time. They're making their moving plans, or they stress out trying to get the house ready and have everything out just to get a 2-week delay. So to me, you want to set these expectations, not to protect yourself, but to satisfy everybody in the deal. Keep expectations real, and be clear, be transparent. If something's getting delayed, let the agents know so that things can get resolved that way. But if you're sending a bunch of buyers to me, A, I'm grateful for it, but B, I try to service every single person who I can in a timely manner. You know, I have a family. Yeah, like I said, I'm a Disney fan. We go to Disneyland and we make most of it. But when I get home, I work, and I don't mind doing it. And I want to make sure that clients' needs are number one in my book, because you never know when that person who had a 500 credit score might know someone who has an 800 credit score, or that person with $50 in their checking account might know someone with $55,000 in their checking account. You want to make sure that you treat everybody equally, but more importantly, set the right expectations. I didn't answer your question at all like you wanted me to, but I just feel like that's when you're getting a lot of people coming your way, you get so caught up in this, ooh, this person's qualified, that person's qualified, you get a car, but you don't take a step back and go through the reality of lending. Not everybody is a homeowner, but everyone has the opportunity to become a better person and better in the housing world, if you will.
And two things. Number one, in general statement, sometimes whatever the answer that someone asks you a question and you give an answer and you feel very confident about it, that is the right answer. And about what you said, yeah, you shared a lot of good nuggets. So if you guys picked up, and if you didn't, go and watch the recordings later today. Yes, there's a lot of good stuff that Ish just shared with us, because it's really about kind of from the eye of a loan officer, but your job, the job of a realtor is not to be play a loan officer or underwriter, right? For sure, not that part, but it's really to have the understanding, because if you don't know how to educate your clients about healthy financials when they start to look for a house, right? And of course, during the process, they'll get into trouble, and there's too much issues between now and then. Jackie?
Yes, I wanted to also talk about the buyer-client lender relationship. So part of being a leader of your client starts with the introduction to the lender. We warm intro all of our buyers to lenders. So it's like, hey, this is our preferred lender. This is why we use them. Please talk to them in the next week. Then we make sure that we're following up to make sure that the lenders responded, that they've connected, and then we answer any questions that the buyer may have based on what the lender said. Because sometimes lenders speak in lenderese and buyers don't fully understand it and are a little bit embarrassed to ask the lender because they just shared all their financial information with them and maybe had some hard conversations. And so the buck stops with the buyer's agent in all areas of the transaction. With the buck doesn't stop with the listing agent. It doesn't stop with the lender. It doesn't stop with the inspector. It really stops with the buyer's agent. And so when you're a buyer's agent, you have to problem solve and be proactive and lead your client. So if Ish may not love this, but let's say the lender said, hey, I'm getting you the pre-approval tonight. The pre-approval doesn't come in and you're the person that recommended the lender. You need to call the lender and be like, where's the pre-approval? Even before your client realizes it hasn't come in. If we're in a transaction and something's going wrong, you, the buyer's agent, need to step in and get on the phone with the lender to figure out what's going on. Yeah, you as the buyer's agent really should be the person who is running around anticipating all the problems and then putting out the fires for everything that's going wrong. in some ways you almost are in like more control that way, because you can kind of control the narrative a little bit. And so it's kind of fun to me. But it does require a lot more proactiveness. And that goes back to leading your client. Because a lot of times the client doesn't understand why the lender's saying, oh, I'm waiting for the underwriter. The client doesn't fully understand that. So you need to help facilitate the communication and explain things.
Yeah. And
No,
lenderese, I've actually never heard that before. That's kind of funny, but it's true, because sometimes when you're having a consultation, I'm just going on, and it's you guys are, every loan officer, at least I think I know of, once you're in your flow, man, you're just rolling, but you don't realize you're speaking the language that you do every day and they don't. So absolutely.
Also, sorry, Meny, I'm just trying to give as many like
I love it.
more
keep
tangible
going.
things. If I don't know what the buyer's saying to me because it's confusing to me, or they're using terms I've never heard of, I will go call the lender and ask and say, why are you telling them this? You think this loan product's great. I've never heard of that. That's one of the reasons why I also like being a real estate agent as a real estate investor. I found out about a ton of loan products from my clients because they're techie millennials who are figuring things out. And then I'm like, oh, dang, that sounds like a cool program. Let me go call the lender.
Yeah.
Sometimes our buyers don't want to use the lender we recommend for whatever reason. And if that's the case, that's okay. We then call the lender and at least have a conversation to find out the relevant information. Like, what's your closing timeline? How long do your appraisals take? Can we get this buyer fully underwritten so we can close quicker? So again, it's just being proactive. It's getting in there and figuring it out and not being afraid to look dumb sometimes, or like you don't know. Never to the client, never to your client, but to everybody else, you can look dumb. Not dumb. You can look like you need information. Let me rephrase that. Thank you.
We got you.
Okay, cool.
Two things, but just to piggyback. Number one is, don't forget, right? As a realtor, we make pretty significant income, right? And I believe that as a professional realtor, you really want to justify that income. Not just by you, oh yeah, here I sent someone an email with the property and they liked it and let's open escrow and that's it. And you have the TCs that they'll do, all the heavy lifting, right? And you hope that the lender is gonna be a good one and that's it. No, you run the show, right? You run the show, because at the end of the day, it is your responsibility and your fiduciary. And again, you're making a pretty significant, right, as a realtor, income justified, because I know that there's a lot of us out there in the state or in the country, but it's going to be great if most realtors will also keep the integrity of the respect to the profession and will keep the reputation that we want to have, right? So
yes, yeah, fiduciary is very important. You have a legal duty to do what's in your client's best interest at all times. So if that means your preferred lender is dropping the ball, or their rate's not as high and some other lender has a better rate, or you need to switch your client over, you need to get in there and do that.
Yeah.
And the second thing, so I'm gonna issue just 1 second. What you said, it's very simple. If someone asks you a question and you don't know, so say, you know what, I don't know. Great question. Let me find out, because things change all the time. Let me call whatever, if it's title question, escrow question, TC question, lender question. But say, I don't know. That's a great question. Things change all the time. Let me call Ish and find out. Ish?
Yeah. And there are buyers who tell me, hey, Ish, have you ever heard of this loan program before? Right now, the big one's Bank of America. Right now, the Bank of America program is all I hear about. And it's like, okay, let's dive a little deeper. Luckily, I knew someone at Bank of America, so I was able to get a little bit more information. But lending changes all the time. And it's funny, because I'm going to go totally off subject for a second, because people want the market to crash. They want 2008 to happen again. And whenever I'm explaining why it's not going to happen again, I always come back around to, and can you imagine if 2008 does happen again? How hard is it to get a loan today? Can you imagine if the market crashes? How much more difficult is it going to be to get a mortgage? Because people, they want to have their cake and eat it too. They don't realize that if the market were to crash, it affects them also, not just trying to get a better deal. Everybody wants a deal. And people who are still in that mindset, I would love to talk to, because it's just a different market, but it's such a great buyer's market to get into, because you're getting credits for closing costs if you can, you're getting a little bit of a price reduction if you can, sometimes both, and you're able to really leverage a great market because of less competition.
Can I also step in, Meny? The other thing I wanted to talk about, and this might be basic and some of you on here might roll your eyes when I say this, but if you are writing an offer, you need to pick up the phone and call the listing agent and find out what is important to the seller on that call. And if they just say price, without being too annoying, you ask as many questions as you can. Oh, you said price. So if it had a 7 in front of it, is that interesting to your seller? Or, oh, if we did this, but added this, would that also be interesting to your seller? I just can't emphasize enough, like the delicate balance of like going to bat for your client, doing your fiduciary duty and not annoying the listing agent. It is a very fine balance, but when you can strike it, you will become a successful buyer's agent. And really that starts with picking up the phone, asking the listing agent what is important to the seller. What other offers do you have in hand? Oh, you have 2 offers? Oh, is anyone in either of them looking better? You just ask kind of open-ended questions and let the listing agent respond. 25% of the time, the listing agent's going to be a jerk about it, but other 75% of the time, you'll at least find out something useful that you can go back and lead your client with. And then also have the lender call the listing agent to tell the listing agent how awesome of a client you have. I don't want to be giving these tips because this is also why a lot of our buyers get their offer accepted on the first or second try, but I also want you guys to be better realtors. And it's very basic, but it's just, we do a lot of listings and it's very surprising how you'll get 6 offers and you only have talked to 1 agent.
Agreed. Absolutely agree. And that's one of the things I always ask my selling agents, who's the listing agent? Let me call them. And when I call them and I catch them at that right moment, and you get the wow, your client now has a wow factor with their offer. And you don't get that very often. There are some listing agents that are just super slammed and they're like, oh, and they barely hear what you're saying. That happens. But when you get them at the right moment and they didn't have to call the lender called them, it's gold. I mean, it really is.
I agree.
And it comes back to the fact that you are acting like a true professional, right? You have a team and you make sure to leverage the team properly, and that's how you win the game.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
You definitely get extra credit.
Exactly. Any questions? Whoever is on the Zoom right now, any question you might have, want to type it in. You wanna unmute yourself and ask. We have Jackie and Ish.
Earlier, Meny said, I think he said something about writing smart questions into the chat box. I say write dumb questions into the chat box. I often tell my buyers there's no dumb question and you might have to ask me 3 or 4 times. You just want the buyer to feel very comfortable. So I don't know how many of you are actually on here fully listening, but if you got a smart or dumb question, we'd love to answer it.
So Nina,
Yeah.
Nina asking, connection with listing agent is so important, so much value in making that connection. Thank you, Nina, for making the comment.
And Nina, on that comment, it goes more than just the 2 or 3 days where you're negotiating. That connection with the listing agent has to last for the life of the escrow. Because I mean, yeah, we are in the relationship business, but we're also in the closing business. And it's so hard, it's so easy for a lender, and I'll just say this from personal experience, to get one deal in escrow, you get them going, and then your processor kind of takes over the file and your assistant takes over the file, where you kind of start going to the right. They start working on this next buyer, and sometimes you come back to the left and like, oh, we had a low appraisal. Oh crap. But it's like, you want to connect and you want to make sure that you're still there, present from day 0 to day 30, and even so on and so forth. I think Ashley has her hand up.
Yeah, thank you, Ish. Ashley, question?
Hey, hi. Quick question for Jackie.
Ashley.
Hey, it's me from Beach Cities. So things have changed so much, so like a few months ago, asking for a seller concession was like, are you kidding me? So now that things have changed a little bit, how are you going about doing that? Is that just basically getting the listing agent on the phone and asking the seller's motivation? And is it something they would be willing to do? Is that how you're kind of going about that?
Yeah, so it often depends, as I'm sure you know, how long the property's been on the market. If it's only been on a week or two and it's priced really well, you know, there's maybe you're not going to get some concessions. But if the property's been on the market for a while, it's even having the call before you go to the showing. Hey, do you have any offers in hand? And if they say no, and let's say the showing's 2 days later, you go to the showing and then you call them after or text them and say, hey, that went really well. I'll give you a call later. Again, none of this would be happening like 3 months or, 6 months ago.
Yeah.
And then when you talk to them 3 days later and they still don't have any offers in hand, then you're like, okay, there's some wiggle room we can play with there. And then the more, again, not pissing the agent off, but the more conversations you can have to find out more about them, the better it's going to go. One of our listing or buyers that closed in Jefferson Park, which I know you're familiar with, talking with the agent, I could tell he was brand new. I went and looked up his sales, saw he was brand new out of area. The dividing line was Crenshaw and the other side was less valuable than being west of Crenshaw. And so I was like, oh shoot, we're going to write a really aggressive offer. And so I called him and said, hey, I'm like below list. I'm like, hey, we're going to submit something a little bit lower. I didn't want to insult your sellers. You kind of just do a little dance with them. And then and then I would run a number by them. If he's like offended by that, then we keep talking about it. Sorry, this is like a long answer.
No, I love it.
Okay. Yeah, a lot of negotiation happens verbally, and a lot of it's like trying to work with the other side when really you're trying to take the other side for all they have, but also get your clients the property. So then I would kind of ask the agent, I know sometimes sellers are really fixated on price. What happens if we came in at this number, but then also asked for closing costs? And then depending on their response to that, then we would go from there. I would say about half our transactions where we're getting concessions, half are coming in the offer themselves, and then the other half are coming from things that are wrong with the property.
Gotcha. And then sorry, just quick. So when you're doing that, right? Of course, there's a possibility they're like, no, the seller's not going to do any concessions. Get out of here. Possibility, right? But do you have a conversation with your buyer first? Like, how badly do you want this? They could say no. And if they have the funds in the account, I'm like, okay, we're just going to go in and you're going to pay for it yourself because you really want the house. You have that conversation as well. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. I give without making the client feel overwhelmed, I let them know what my interactions have been with the listing agent. Like if they're we just had a really big jerk agent on the list to sign. It's such a cool feeling to be like, you're asking to sign the buyer rep agreement. And so it changes really the dynamic. I know it's very hard to mentally get there and realize like, I'm worth a buyer agreeing to work with me exclusively, especially if there's some sort of cold lead or internet lead. That is very hard. And you might have to show a lot more value up front than if it's just a sphere lead or sphere friend. Does that make sense?
It does. And I don't have a problem asking for it.
Cool.
I mean, I know what I'm worth walking into it. I just am not seasoned to have done it like 1,000 times. And so I like to know what the words are because I have no problem letting them know my time is, because I don't have a lot of extra time. So
I love that.
I love what you said, though. It's like, I've never heard it that way. So that's so great.
That's my business partner. Christina is very good with scripts and setting expectations with clients. So
yeah, so good.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Jenna. Good question. Ashley, thank you as well. Any last thoughts you want to share before we're gonna let you guys back to do your one thing? Jackie,
please.
I feel like there's a million things I want to say, but I think I'm okay. What do you have to say?
My nugget for everybody is be genuine. If your time is valuable, be genuine to yourself, be genuine to your client, and find great business relationships. Because although I want to work with every buyer and do every loan in the world, I can't. I only have two hands. I only have 2 eyes, 2 ears, and 1 mouth. So if I can help 20 great families a year buy a home, then that's what I'm meant to do. So, and I've come to terms with that. I had a conversation with a realtor who's no longer in the LA Harbor office. He asked me, so what's your goal? What's your end game for this? And I remember telling him, I want to work with every realtor in this office. And he asked me why. And I told my wife the same thing. And my wife said, because you want to make money, duh. And I started thinking about it. It's more than money. It's helping 20 to 30 great families move in a year. If I can do that, that's my business plan, and I'm genuine to it. So I'm genuine to myself. So be genuine to yourself.
That's awesome.
Can I say one last thing, Meny?
Yes.
If anybody on here ever wants to grab coffee or meet up and get together just to talk through real estate investing, your business, anything, I'd love to sit down and do that. I've had a lot of great mentors or a lot of great business connections, as Ish mentioned. Also, if anybody is looking to join a team, Who in Blue Group is hiring.
Do you mind, both of you, do you manage to type on the chat your info? So like what's the best way to reach out to you? And also you can say it out loud, so whoever's gonna watch the recording will only can hear it. They won't see it typing.
Go ahead, Jackie.
Jackie Who. And so my email is Jackie, JACKIE period HU @KW.com. And my phone number is 949-861-1663 with the Who in Blue Real Estate Group.
And I am Ismael Bastida, House America Financial, cell phone number 310-809-4182. And email address is my first name, Ismael, ISMAEL, houseamericahl.com.
Awesome stuff. Can't thank you enough, Jackie with the Who in Blue Real Estate team, and Ish, House America lender. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us, and thank you for whoever was on the call. And
Before you sign off, oh, you got it. Okay, you got the phone number. Okay, I just want to make sure you saw that.
I'll say it one more time. Jackie Who in Blue Real Estate Group, 949-861-1663.
awesome. Sold. Thank you, guys. Keep it
Bye,
up.
everybody. Great
Bye.
to see
Nice
you.
to meet you, Jackie.
Yes, you too, Ish.